Thanks for being here. So we're going to have time for some of your questions, but to start off, I want to talk a little bit about setting and time. Watching this, it's so clear that it captures a certain moment. But were you guys aware that you were doing that? Was that an intention? Anybody can answer that.
Is this on? Yeah. I produced A Big Chill, which was very specific about that generation. And when I met Helen, I asked her questions about her generation. It's extremely, almost to some degree, painfully self-conscious about the time in a way that I don't think you have to do now if you're doing a similar movie because of the internet and so much of this has been usurped by television. But it was meant to be about the time, very specifically.
So did you guys feel a lot of pressure in capturing all of those little details? I mean, from the production design on up, everything had to be perfect because even before the internet, you were up. You know, people would make fun of you if you got it wrong.
That was really important to us. Ironically, things that, like, Michael had to fly to San Francisco to talk to the chairman of the Gap, to talk them into letting us shoot in an actual Gap store, something that we get money to do today. So, I mean, it was a very different time. The whole notion of selling out is kind of gone. I think, you know, Melania would have happily embraced Michael Grace after she saw the documentary.
Well, she'd be on YouTube.
I think Michael and Stacey carried the burden of that more than Ben and I did in some ways, because the pressure to actually write a story about characters, you know, I don't think we could have thought in terms of like, okay, is this Gen X enough? Or, you know, while you're trying to write an actual story about people. So a lot of times that was, Michael and Stacey really had an eye out for that, and Ben just had a natural talent for it, like from his show too. Just capturing the world of television, the world, you know, mocking the media and that kind of thing.
Right, it's kind of inescapable now to see it that we realize, you know, almost 20 years later that if we made this movie today, it would turn out very differently. Is that what you were thinking about when you watched it?
I'm just still trying to come to grips with the size of my hair.
Like John Crawford.
And your cell phone.
Yeah. Wow. Sorry, it's just like, it's very, I apologize. I just want to apologize for every mistake I made up there. It's really weird to see a movie. I haven't seen it for probably, I think, that long. So I haven't seen parts of it, but to watch it and with an audience, which was really just a unique experience. It's really.
We want to thank you because you're the first audience who got the bell jar joke, I think.
Well, you were a first-time feature filmmaker with this project.
Yeah.
And you are feeling now like you can see that. Like,
Well, I think any filmmaker, you know, if you look at something you've done, the more time you have from it, it just gives you a totally different perspective. So I look at certain choices. It's really interesting to see the stuff that, you know, that makes me cringe, and the stuff that doesn't make you cringe. And it's just a very strange thing. You know, I feel that it's, I don't know, it's very interesting.
did you ever think of putting yourself in the Ethan Hawke character?
No. No, that was never an option. No, I mean, I was invited to come on board by Jersey Films because they've been developing this movie with Helen, and she was writing about a lot of personal experiences, and Troy was, you know, a really specific type, and my character really sort of developed as we started to talk about the movie, and I tried to figure out a way to get a part in the film. No, I was trying to figure out a way to connect with the movie as a director, and we started talking about the points of view that the characters had, and her, you know, a lot of it being very personal, and I was coming sort of more from my point of view, and I felt like it was important to have a character in there that sort of represented another side of that generation, you know, a few years older, and that would help sort of the story. But so that's how Michael character sort of came to be.
Yeah, that role was always kind of the weak link when we developed it, and then when Ben came on, we did a sort of a retro scripting process where he and I improv'd out the seeds, and he really kind of invented that character, and a lot of the dialogue you hear Michael say is actually, that was what Ben said when we just saw the cassettes. when we improved it out, and then I would go and script it, and I think that's what made the movie come alive.
Ben had this great insight because Michael's character was in his 30s, so he was like this 30-something with 20-somethings, which was really more obvious, and Ben just said, make it a fair fight, make him of their generation, but a person who has real aspirations and different motivations. It really transformed the movie.
And when we tested it, some of the audience was upset that she didn't end up with his character.
Did you shoot a version like that?
No, we never shot that version. But it was a strange thing because it was a studio movie that was being made about, the idea of this commodification of dissent or whatever, and the idea that it was a Universal movie that really was sort of independent-minded was always something that I think we struggled with. We were really concerned. Remember, you want to tell that story about the Berkeley screening?
Oh, yeah. We screened it first at a test screening in Palm Springs because the Universal executives were having a retreat, and we didn't think they were sophisticated enough, so we decided we'd screen it in Berkeley where the audience would get it.
Well, it's all because of that bell jar joke.
Yeah.
Ben and I became obsessed with the fact that the audience was just not sophisticated enough in Palm Springs to get the bell jar joke. And
So we wanted to go and find our audience.
And
we were
everybody,
geniuses about this. We thought Berkeley, there are people.
and the scores would be great. Well, everybody in Berkeley turned out to be a film critic. And how hard you get these long critical analysis of what they didn't like about it. So screw that one.
And they did not laugh at the bell jar joke.
Well, it was worse than that. When the Universal logo came up, they booed.
In the focus group, somebody actually said you violated the rules of decoupage editing in the big gulp scene. It was not one of mine and Ben's better instincts.
No one gets notes like that anymore, I don't think. I think we
Still
should.
don't know what they composed.
I think it was the last film. Did we cut on film?
Yes, we did come.
It was the last film we cut.
Yeah. Cold War.
Why don't we open it up to the audience for questions? I think there are some mics that are going to be around, but if you just want to raise your hands, and we'll call on you that way.
Just, Ben, since you opened it up, you were saying some of the things that made you cringe and some that you still liked. Would you give us such as?
Yeah, sure. It's just a strange thing to. We premiered the movie here in this theater 18 years ago.
Wow.
So that was so then I think I was cringing at different things. But you're so close. Yeah, you're so close. So I guess looking back, seeing the moments that play, and that it's interesting to see moments that I feel are like real moments that play just as well, or still play well. And then I see places where I feel like I sort of underlined it too much and felt like I had to sort of dot the I a little too much, or cross the T too much, and underline it for the audience. So trying to think of another alphabetical metaphor. But certain close-ups or music cues where I feel like, I could have just let that be, or I could have let it play out in the end even. Even in the end, maybe that last shot, when they come together, a really pretty shot, that wide shot, I could just maybe just let it end right there, things like that. Or that close-up when I say, I know what she needs and when you never will. I kind of wanted to leave the theater at that moment. But it's just, it's just interesting. It's just certain things you go, I could have just let that be, because the moments where I see Janine really laughing, those moments where I realize, I feel like those are still just as fresh as when we first made the movie, and but that's just the benefit of time, really, that you never have with a movie. I think when you're in it and who you are at the time when you make the movie, and overall, it's really a good feeling to see it, and aside from just being present and seeing the aging process.
Was there a lot of improvisation on set?
There was not that much, was there? Not really. I mean, a lot of it came in the rehearsal,
Yeah.
and
And
yeah.
scripted it.
Yeah, and then we just all hung out together a lot, and I knew Janine and Steve. Ethan were friends, right? And Winona knew Ethan, and so it was just sort of everybody. We all felt like we were equals and sort of hanging out. And when you're directing and acting, you have to sort of have that camaraderie with the actors because it's a different process because you're in it, and you really need the support of the other actors.
And you knew Susie and
Susie
John
Mahoney, yeah, because we
from
done a play, yeah. So, and my friend Harry O'Reilly, who plays Susie's husband,
And your mom.
and my mom, and Andy Dick,
Oh, Ben
my close friend.
Was there a sense though, as you were making this, that it was sort of a ragtag group of youth taking on a big cultural thing?
I think when you guys were starting when you had the idea for the movie, you wanted to do something, right, that sort of identified with at that moment in time, right?
Yeah, we wanted to do a portrait in time, but what Ben said earlier, it always comes down to characters and story. You can't really have people spout off stuff. So it's a zeitgeist comedy, it's a social comedy, and I think we all grew up on, say, Mazursky films or some middle Woody Allen films that were really specific to the times they lived in, yet told individual stories. And you don't see that much anymore in film. I think television does some of it.
Yeah, I mean, all the television stuff, I think when you're putting television commercials in a movie, they're going to date the movie, but you sort of do that intentionally. I just watched Being There again recently. There's so much TV, and all of those. It's so great to see like all those commercials and shows, because the older they get, the more dated they get, the more interesting it is to sort of look at what we watched at that time. So I think it's kind of cool to have that stuff in the movie.